Welcome to another How Pug Paints. In this video series, I will be painting Fennblade Kithkar. After removing mold lines and assembling the model, we prime the model with Vallejo Surface Primer German Pancer Gray. Since the majority of this model is his armor plates, I decided to paint it first. I gave the entire model a coat of black. You could actually just skip this step, but I wanted a good base color when I put on the metals, and black is the best one in my opinion. If you don't have an airbrush, don't sweat it, it just may take you longer. I wanted the metal to have dimensions, I wanted to have shadows, I wanted to have highlights. To achieve that, I will be using different tones of metal, and we start off with the first color, which is Vallejo's Black Metal. Then we highlight the metals by using Vallejo's Model Air Chrome. I apply the paint on every surface the light will directly hit. And this is what you get. The shadows are dark, and the highlights are bright. I wanted the metal to have a cool look when you look at it. I didn't want to use just a typical black wash and dye brushing it with chrome again to bring it back up. The wash I'm putting on the model is 2-part black wash, 2-part blue wash, and 2-part blue ink. The reason I threw in the blue ink was because Games Workshop line of watches are very dark in color and typically associated more with the black or brown color. P3's blue ink, even though it is a wash in itself, the color is much brighter, and adding it to this watch mixture actually makes it pop out more. After the previous wash has dried, I gave the model another hit of the wash, just to really tint the metal. You can see now that the metal is no longer the boring silver, it's more of a bluish, tealish tone to it, and it looks quite good. If you want, you can actually stop and leave the metal as it is, but it's going a bit too futuristic, too neon rave party for trolls. To bring down the tinting, I'm highlighting or dye brushing on chrome. Most of the tint will actually disappear from this process and leaving a very subtle blue effect in the deepest shadows or when you look at the model from a particular angle. And this is what you get. I wanted this model to look darker, especially in his skin, and because trolls are normally bluish, I decided to use a dark blue or Kanthor blue from Citadel. I had to do his eyes off camera, but the 3 colors that I used were Codex Gray, Fortress Gray, and Wolf Gray. Typically in anything privately oppressed, they use Sanguine base to give shadow to every color they use, so I substituted it with Deep Red from Reaper's Master Series. I applied this wash in the crevices where the muscles met, or any areas that I considered needed shadows. And here's a still shot of when everything is dried and done. The first step to highlighting the skin is to clean up the areas where the wash went, where we don't want it to. So we use Kanthor blue again to just clean up. After that, I slowly mixed in Teclis blue from also Citadel or Game Workshop, starting at a 2 Kanthor blue to 1 Teclis blue, and moving up to 1 to 1, 1 to 2, and finally pure Teclis blue. The most important thing to remember when you paint skin of any type, of any color, is to use thin down paints. The reason for this, because normally how at least I paint skin, is that I like to use multiple layers, slowly building up the highlights from shadow to the most brightest points of the miniatures. This normally requires a lot of layers. If you use thick paints, the layers will build up or cake, showing visible brush strokes, which will give an unsmooth or uneven surface, which is not skin. This process was probably the most time-consuming step in the entire miniature. It will take quite a while. Stay patient, take your time. Here are some stills of the final result. You can clearly see the difference between the lightest and the darkest points of the muscles. Next we move on to the kilt. I'm going for a green-red combination of it, so I start off base coating the entire kilt with deep green. Then I started drawing horizontal and vertical lines using purple from Vallejo game color. This is the first kilt I ever painted using a paintbrush and not cheat by using a pen. My best advice when you want to do something like this is just eyeball it. Everything doesn't have to be exact, especially when cloth is folded. Patterns are off. Patterns are always not exactly straight on folded cloth. So use that to your advantage. The actual process of highlighting the kilt is actually very tedious. There's a lot of small parts that I had to focus on, similar to painting the eyes, so I had to do that off camera. But the general idea is to highlight the green to a lighter color. I went from deep green, mixing in a bit of neon green or a neon green color, from one highlight to another until I get to a yellowish, almost pure neon green. While the purple, I did likewise. I slowly added white or bleached bone color to make it more and more pale until you get to this. Where you want to focus your highlights on the horizontal and vertical stripes or pattern is in the middle. So the brightest point will be in the middle of the pattern. To tie everything together, I gave the kilt a wash of Thraka green or green wash, focusing most of the wash in the kilt recesses more than the actual kilt. All of the leather details were base coated with Breasty brown. The way I actually paint leather is quite strange when you compare it to the ordinary 3-color highlighting technique. What I do first is I tint or glaze the leather pieces with a purple wash. I personally love using purple wash on leather because it will give the leather a dark, rich tone to it. I normally give the leather at least 2 coats of this purple glaze. To highlight the leather, I start off using khaki. However, I don't edge highlight, I tap highlight. I only tap in sections where the wear will occur. Sometimes it's on the edge of the straps, sometimes it's in the middle of where the strap bends. Just use your imagination where you want to put the wear. After khaki, I normally hit the same areas with a lighter highlight of bleached bone. Depending on how much wear and tear I want my leathers to have, I normally use another glaze of either sepia wash or a brown wash, just to help blend the khaki, the bleached bone, and the darkened leather together even more. All the gold / bronze parts were first base coat with a mixture of BC brown and Ganera gold. After that, it was highlighted with straight Ganera gold and washed with purple. A final highlight of Mithril silver is fairly used to give back the gold areas its bling. After this step is completed, all you need to do is finish the minor details, the base, and you're done.